I quit baseball for 10 years. So what happened? Hello, everyone. This is Bryce on Balls, where I document my personal baseball journey in the hopes of helping you on yours. In this inaugural video, we will be discussing my personal journey with baseball all the way up until this point, and mainly why I quit for so long and why I'm currently back here today. I hope you get something out of it. I'll share some lessons learned. So as I sort of start to demonstrate why I quit playing baseball in general and for such a long period of time, I want to give a little bit of context. So for lack of a better term, I'll walk through my origins of baseball, as it were. So I started playing baseball when I was 4 years old. Obviously, it was strictly recreational because I was so young. And it was always something I had taken a liking to. And I was pretty good at it. In rec baseball, I stood out a little bit more than most players. So I just kept continuing to play and really enjoying it. Fast forward all the way up until I was about 11 years old. At that point, I decided that I wanted to try out for club baseball, or a lot of you will know it today as travel baseball. I've seen countless Facebook pages dedicated to travel baseball. It's insane. It wasn't like that when I was 11, but nevertheless, I did spend 3 years playing travel baseball throughout middle school. So from when I was 11 years old all the way till 14, I played travel baseball. I still excelled in that as well. I thought I was pretty good at it. I pitched quite a bit. I never really was much of a good hitter. That's something I have always struggled with, even now up until this point. My earlier youth in my baseball journey is the most uninteresting part of all this and not really relevant to why I quit. So let me actually fast forward all the way to high school baseball. So when high school baseball came around, it was pretty evident to me that I wanted to play in college for so many different reasons. One, trying to get a college scholarship to pay for school. It kind of nice. There was no doubt in my mind I wanted to go to college, so using that as an avenue to get my education for free sounded pretty appealing. On the other hand, I really liked it. Of course, I had played throughout the entirety of my youth into early adulthood, so it just kind of made sense. I didn't really have a plan on how to get to college baseball. That was my first mistake. I just kind of figured that I would just play my best and my talent would kind of do the rest. I didn't really fully understand what it took to get better and to truly get to a collegiate level, mainly because of the fact I was so young. When you're 15, 16 years old, you're just starting out in life. You don't really have a whole lot figured out. So with high school baseball did come more success. I didn't make varsity my freshman year or anything like that. I just played JV baseball. I started at shortstop and I continued to pitch. I had a successful season my first time out. Despite not having a whole lot of extensive training, as I alluded to earlier, I just pretty much relied on my talent up to this point alone. I was pitching a lot more than hitting. Despite me playing shortstop quite a bit, I was never really much of a successful hitter my freshman year. It's something I continued to struggle with. My pitching excelled. I was one of the starting pitchers. I pitched quite a bit. So by the time sophomore season came around, we had lost a lot of seniors, so I ended up actually making varsity my sophomore year. And again, I was lucky enough to perform well and to start at shortstop and starting pitch as often as I could. That sophomore year, I actually had a really successful season, despite, again, not having a whole lot of work put into it. I was throwing my fastball, probably topping out about 80 miles an hour. The weird thing about that sophomore season was that I started to get a lot of arm trouble. particularly after I got mono, which is not super relevant, but I could never figure out why after getting mono, my arm always started to hurt. I guess I've never been able to explain that. I chalk it up to just I was never really taught, or I never really pursued having the proper mechanics. I just went out there and just did it and hoped for the best. So after my success, my sophomore season came around junior year. This is the point where I kind of decided to go all in on baseball. Up to this point, I had played 3 different sports in high school: basketball, volleyball, and baseball. Baseball was a spring sport. Basketball was a winter sport. So in an attempt to up the ante and actually engage in some more extensive training my junior season and to really go all in for it, I actually decided to stop playing basketball altogether. Was it the right choice for me at the time? I think so. I don't think I would have really, in the long run, it really was to my benefit to really undergo this extensive training. When I say extensive training in this case, I mean like weight and explosiveness training, like just getting stronger, bigger, faster. I'll talk a little bit more about that when I get closer to talking about why I ended up hanging it up for a while. So in undergoing this extensive training, there's a few things I did. One, weight and resistance, speed training, things along those lines. I did that for actually like 6 months. So from when volleyball season ended in about November all the way up until March, if my math is right, that's about 6 months. I went and weight trained basically 4 days a week. I went through an entire program in the off season that my baseball coach put together. I had a lot of success with it. I think I put on like 10 to 15 pounds, I want to say. And when it was all said and done, I obviously threw harder because you're stronger, you're more explosive, and you're faster. So I ended up gaining like 4 to 5 miles per hour on my fastball. So if you don't remember earlier, that would equate to me throwing at about 84 miles an hour. And for the record, when I was in high school, I threw 3 pitches. I threw a fastball, I threw a knuckle curve, and I threw a changeup, which was a really fun arsenal throw in. Nevertheless, I also did participate in like a baseball camp. Luckily, there was a guy local to my area, the Milwaukee area specifically, for those of you who do not know that, but it was like a camp that went on for 4 months, once a week, every Sunday for a couple hours, where you'd hit, pitch, weight train, learn all these new techniques, and that actually helps me quite a bit as well. So all of this extensive training, it was the right move, as I alluded to earlier, especially the weight training. But the problem was I was kind of lulling myself into a trap. What I mean by that is, despite me weight training as much as I did and going to that camp once a week, I kind of got people in my circle kind of kept feeding me this idea that just because I had worked hard meant that I would have success. And so what I did was I kind of just assumed that automatically I would become a better baseball player by being bigger, faster, and stronger. I worked on my technique, yes, but it wasn't nearly as much as it should have been. So I'm going into my junior season, it really hyped up about all the progress I've made on my fastball, the strength and speed that I have gained. And I was going into it with a lot of confidence. And I just kind of automatically assumed that I would be an all-conference player. I'd get a lot of collegiate attention. And that didn't really happen, which was really devastating and leads me into the moment that I decided to walk away from it all. So this leads me into my junior season. Junior year, it was going really poorly, like hilariously bad. I wasn't hitting well, which, given my past, was no surprise. I didn't really understand the art of hitting. I wasn't feeling particularly well either. I mean, at shortstop, I was making error after error after error, and it killed me. It was such a confidence killer, and it caused me to even play worse, especially when I'm already struggling to hit and I'm fielding poorly. Of course, I'm going to hit even worse. Granted, I was actually still pitching pretty well, which was kind of a nice silver lining. That's nothing I really struggled with, but nevertheless, it was getting to the point where my confidence was hurting so badly. I felt really embarrassed having people watch me play so poorly. And it just, I was starting to feel terrible about myself. It wasn't fun anymore. It was a conglomeration of me putting a ton of pressure on myself to want to play college baseball and not really understanding what it took to get there, but also walking into it just assuming that just because I had worked hard means I would automatically be good at something without really realizing that technique kind of trumps everything. And if you don't have the proper technique, you're not going to be very good. It's so important in baseball, but I'll talk about that in lessons learned later on. So all the while, like going through not only having a poor season, it was one that was really interesting from behind the scenes as well. I say that because we had a coaching change in the middle of a season, which was quite the saga. That's a topic for a different video, but there was actually a freshman friend of mine who started playing varsity with us. He's a very good baseball player. He actually ended up playing Division I at Texas Corpus Christi. Of course, me just being a average baseball player, I wasn't going to compete very well with that. So he ended up competing with me for playing time, and eventually he ended up taking my spot as short, and I didn't really play short as much. The only time I did is when he went in and pitched. So that just hurt a lot after a while. I put more work into training than I ever did in my entire life, and arguably I played worse than I ever had before. So that's a very general overview of why I stopped playing. I'll give you the exact moment. This all bubbled into one particular game as all of this was going on. I distinctly remember it was about the fourth inning, and I botched another ball. I made another fielding error. And immediately after, I was subbed off for my friend who I was talking about, he's a great guy. And he played very, very well. And I recall people giving him a lot of praise, people getting really excited about watching him play because he played a great game. And I just sunk lower and lower and lower. And that was rock bottom for me, and I just never really recovered from it. And I very much remember talking to my significant other after the game, and I just kind of said, after high school, I'm done. I'm not going to play baseball anymore. And it just hurt so much. I couldn't take it anymore. I'd spent so much time into being a good baseball player. Perhaps not the rightly allotted time, which I'll talk a little bit about later in lessons learned, but nevertheless, so much time. And I was letting my mind get into this falsehood that just because I put time into it meant that I would automatically succeed. And when you combine all those things together, plus me being an immature 17-year-old who just couldn't really handle his emotions very well, it was a recipe for disaster. So from that game on, I decided it was time for me to just, I'll play when I feel like it, when I enjoy it. But other than that, I'm done. I'm not playing college baseball. Reflecting on that now, I mean, this was over 10 years ago, as you might have guessed from the title of this video, but it was probably the right decision for me to walk away from it. I had the proper work ethic. Work ethic for me was never really a problem. But I didn't really have the proper understanding or the mindset to be a great baseball player. I was good at it. Like I fully believe that if I had talked to coaches, gone to showcases, emailed them, sent them video, pursued it. I could have played college baseball somewhere. There's not a doubt in my mind, but as a thin-skinned, invulnerable 17-year-old, I just wasn't in the right headspace for it. And if I would have gone on to play college baseball, I probably would have never played again after that. I think I would have just sunk even lower because I just couldn't handle it. I just didn't have the right mental state of mind to do it. And so, with my assumption that my work ethic and my physical strength would carry me to excellence being thrown out the window and me finding that wasn't true, it was just too devastating for me to really recover from. And honestly, I was too fragile to back bounce from it. I didn't have the mental resilience to look at baseball as a lifelong process and a long-term process. I looked at it as I have to do this right now or else I'm never going to be good at it. And more than that, outside of my fragility, I just didn't have the confidence. Confidence was something I lacked extremely in high school. I was just never really a confident person for one reason or another. That's part of being a teenager. Maybe some of you can relate to it who are watching this and maybe had a similar experience to I did to myself going through high school baseball and even youth baseball or college or what have you. But because of that confidence as well, when I was going through that last game where I decided to hang it up after high school, I truly believed I was a mediocre baseball player. I truly believe that no college is going to want me to play for them. I'm not very good at this. So when you get to that point and you have some resolve and your mind's made up, there's not really a whole lot of coming back from that. So that's pretty much why I decided to stop playing. In summation, I just assumed that because I worked hard, I would be good at it. And after investing all this time and not reaping the rewards, it killed my confidence so badly. I attribute it to the fact that it's a perfect storm of that and also my mental state of being and my lack of confidence as a person at such a young age. So that kind of begs the question then, I quit baseball for such a long time. What am I doing now? Or what did I do immediately after stopping and playing in high school? So I'll answer that part first. What did it look like after I stopped playing baseball? Well, it's not a very interesting part of my journey, so I'll keep it brief. But I just went on to college and I was a normal student. My junior year of high school season ended. Life did go on. I decided to keep playing my senior year. I still was playing summer travel ball as well for the Boys and Girls Club of Milwaukee throughout all 4 of my summers in high school. I loved it. It was great. My mind was still pretty made up throughout my senior year that I was going to play in college. I believed I could have pitched in college. That much to me was clear, but I knew I wouldn't be a successful college hitter. And to be honest, since I spent most of my life being a pretty poor hitter, that's what was really the most fascinating aspect of playing baseball to me. Well, one, because offense is fun, but I very much always have and always did crave the pleasure of getting hits. Like you've probably been told throughout your life that there's a certain dopamine rush you get from doing certain things. For those of you who play baseball, whenever you get a hit, I'm sure you feel that same way. If you pitch, maybe it's a strikeout, a save, what have you. But when I get a hit on a baseball field, no matter how brief of a moment that I'm absorbing the fact that I got a hit and I'm running the bases, there's something intoxicating about it. And I knew that with my skill level in high school with hitting, I would never taste that. So I since I couldn't get that rush, that I knew I wouldn't get it in college either. So that's all I have to say on that. So then that brings it to college. I went through college as a normal student. I didn't play baseball at all. I considered baseball to be over. I never thought I would play again because when you're playing adult league baseball, or when you're an adult and you don't have baseball, and especially in this part of the country where I'm from, you don't really hear about many baseball leagues going on. I'll talk about that later about the one I'm playing in right now. But at the time, I was like, well, I guess I'll just play slow pitch softball, and that will kind of fill the void. So when I went back home in the summers from college, that's what I did. I really enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun. So for about 10 years, I completely stopped playing. So from the age of I was almost 19 when I played my last baseball game. I didn't pick up a baseball again until I think I was 26. Now you might be asking yourself, in the video I said why I quit baseball for 10 years. It was more like 8, with a little bit of buffer time in there. 10 sounded more cool than 8, which is why I titled it 10 in the video, but forgive me for giving that little white lie. So that kind of begs to the question then, you quit for 10 years or 8, what led you back into it? This is something that I will call and have called the spark. So fast forward to me being 26 years old after the COVID-19 pandemic. A dear friend of mine moved to the area after college ended. He went to school at UW Milwaukee. He was living in Milwaukee. Him and I decided to room together, so I moved out of the place I was currently in, moved in with him. And he discovered this Sandlot baseball team called the Milwaukee Bangers. A shout out to the Bangers. If you guys are curious about who they are, what they do, they're a great group. Find them on Instagram at Milwaukee Bangers. Anyways, my friend found this team called the Milwaukee Bangers on Instagram that was having just open practices. Just come to the batting cages, hit, have some fun, and hang out and meet some friends. So I was actually not very interested in it at first. Oddly enough, I was still in this mindset that I had. I was still in the mindset that I had about baseball when I was in high school, which is like, I'm just not very good at it. I'm going to get laughed at if I go out there. But he convinced me, and I decided to go out and go to a winter session, which was just a very informal batting cage session of about an hour. I hadn't swung a bat in years, so I basically forgot how to hit mostly. It's not as though I was ever very good at hitting in the first place, but I didn't really feel this immediate spark to play again when I went to this winter session. Like, it was fun. I made some cool friends. I would have gone out again, but I wouldn't necessarily say that I was like loving life being there and playing. I did enjoy meeting some new friends that I still play for this team, so I still talk to them all the time, and it was the best decision I ever made. But I was having fun with it, but like, I didn't really have this deep passion about it that I felt. So shortly after joining up, the team actually organized a scrimmage with another local team, and I actually had the opportunity to pitch for the first time in forever. It was what we call a mashup game, so we combined our Sandlot recreational team with a competitive team in the area. We intermingled, we counted off 1-2, 1-2, and we played a game. I forgot how fun it was to pitch while I was going through this game and doing so. I had started to feel like a little bit of passion for pitching because that's what I was familiar with and that's what I was good at in my baseball past. Granted, I almost took off some heads pitching because when you haven't pitched in so long, your mechanics kind of forget, it's just like the same as it was with hitting again. Like, I kind of forgot how to do it. Like, I could still effectively do it, but there came a lot of problems, like almost hitting too many people. So by after this game and by this point, I can feel this spark kind of going through, like it's like a little fire was lit. It would be like the equivalent of maybe not a bonfire, but a cigarette lighter. It would be the way I would sum it up. And despite all that, I still couldn't hit a baseball very well. So, the spark wasn't fully there yet because I was still craving that intoxicating feeling of being a good hitter. So it was at this point when the cigarette lighter started to light up, if you will, that I decided to do something about the fact that I've never been that good of a hitter. So what I did was I had this little piece of paper that was like the size of an index card that I had written on years ago when I had a hitting lesson with an instructor. After that hitting lesson with the instructor when I was a child, I decided to write down all the technique notes that he gave me. And I recollected all that. I went back, I read it, and I said, okay, I'm going to I don't have anybody to throw to me. I don't have a machine. I don't have access to a whole lot of resources. So what can I do? I decided I was going to buy a baseball tee off of Amazon for like $20. And I would buy, I didn't really have a whole lot of space either. So I couldn't use real baseballs. So I just bought like these foam training baseballs off of a colleague who was selling them at work for like $5. So basically for $30 and a wood bat, which was another $30, I got myself a setup where I could work on this technique. Excuse me. So for many days, for a long time, like months, I want to say, I would just go to a random park, go hit off of a tee, try each piece of the technique on this piece of paper that I was reading, and just seeing where I could get better. Like did this particular technique work? To keeping my hands higher and lower work better as a result? Was me keeping my weight lower to the ground? Was my back leg bent? Things along those lines. And I would just go over the technique over and over and over again. I would refine it over and over and over again. If I didn't hit a ball well, I would say, okay, what adjustment, what one adjustment at a time can I do to make the result better? And so I was teaching myself purely without YouTube or anything, just to hit through trial and error. And I still kind of do this technique when I learn to hit. And I did this so many times up until the point where a lot of it just became second nature, so that the next time I played a game with the bangers, I'd be ready to hit and hopefully hit well. So as I alluded to in my origins, that I never really practiced my hitting technique a whole lot because I didn't really know how to be a good hitter. I got better really, really fast. Like I started hitting very, very well. When it came to practice in games, I started hitting the ball pretty convincingly. And because of that, I started building up a lot of confidence. So I was feeling great. And that leads me into the moment in 2023, I want to say, where I fell in love with baseball again. So through the Milwaukee Bangers, we took a trip down to Tulsa, Oklahoma. The beautiful thing about the Sandlot Baseball Collective, if you guys are curious about the Sandlot Baseball Collective, go on Instagram. Every Sandlot baseball team has an account, and go find them. You can just look at who the Milwaukee Bangers are following. There is an extensive network of recreational baseball out there through the Sandlot Collective that some of you could find around the country. So please go ahead and find it. It will change your life like it has mine. But nevertheless, there's quite a few of these Sandlot teams down in Tulsa, Oklahoma. There's 6. So through the Milwaukee Bangers, we decided to take a trip down to Tulsa, Oklahoma. The Sandlot Baseball network down there is pretty extensive. There are 6 teams. So we decided that we would drive down there, which is 11 hours from Milwaukee, and we would play 3 games against 3 other teams down there. And my God, did we have a blast and make a ton of good friends that we still talk to today. I could make an entire video on how phenomenal this trip was, and I will at some point, but that's a conversation for another time. So this leads to the moment where I fell in love with baseball again. So I'm going to be a little dramatic about it because it's one of the top 3 memories I have of my entire life because it was so intoxicating. On the second day of the trip that we were in Tulsa, it downpoured. And in baseball, if it rains, it's tough to play, nigh almost impossible. So since we had driven 11 hours, we begged the Rumblers, bless their hearts, we still love them, we still talk to them and still hang out with them to this day because they're our friends. They rented out a blowtorch to dry out their field so that we could actually end up playing. So with their help and their tremendous hosting and hospitality abilities, we actually ended up getting to play. So in Oklahoma in the summertime, it's humid as all hell. We were playing at a field called Lacey Park. Maybe I'll put up a picture of it from Google Maps in the video when I get a chance. Lacey Park's a pretty sizable field. Like, it's got dimensions that are pretty similar to a Major League Baseball field. Like, center field is 400 feet. In the alleys, it's about 375. Maybe in the corners, it's about 330. Depending. I don't recall the exact dimensions of the corners, but it was my second at bat of the game. Up to this point, I had been hitting pretty well. Like on Friday, I had gotten a hit or two, and my first at bat, I got another hit. I can't remember what hit it was. It was a double. I'm sorry. I remember because the first at bat that I had, it was a pretty convincing double to the right center gap. So as I come up for my second at bat, I'm feeling myself. I'm sweating my balls off in this Oklahoma heat. My style of baseball attire at the time was athletic shorts, a headband, and the jersey, and I'm calmly ready to just fire because I'm feeling loose. I didn't really think about anything in the at bat other than my technique. I maybe pick one cue or two to use throughout an at bat to help me make sure I'm hitting the ball well. So the first pitch was a fastball in the dirt. It was pretty convincing. I kind of wanted to swing at it, but the second pitch came was another fastball, and this time it was a swing and a miss. The third pitch was another fastball right in the sweet spot, which for me is up in the zone and slightly on the outer half. I saw the ball all the way through the zone. I took a swing. I didn't necessarily swing as hard as I could, but you heard this pretty loud crack like you'd hear in a major league park when you hear somebody hit a home run. And the feeling that I had when I made contact was, it was almost like I didn't touch the ball at all. It was like a knife through butter. And I remember thinking to myself, well, that felt different. And it was very similar to the double I had just had, except even less resistive. I wish, like, if you've hit a home run before, you know what it feels like, but I will describe it as cutting through butter. But I've never experienced that feeling before. So I remember running toward first, and I'm sprinting as hard as I can because I've never hit a home run before. I didn't think this ball was going to go anywhere. So I'm like, okay, it's probably going to be a double. So I keep running. As I'm rounding first, I peek up. I see the center fielder stop running. And I look up and I see my now friend, Corey, who was playing shortstop, give me a huge high five and a big congrats. And I had realized I had just hit the first home run of my entire life. Even talking about it now, I kind of want to well up a bit because the amount of emotion that I'd felt in that moment was nothing like I've ever felt before in my entire life. I had been through a lot of stuff personally in the years before it. Obviously, we all did with the COVID-19 pandemic. Add on to the fact that my origin story before of not having a lot of success in baseball, thinking that I was going to be done with it forever, not being a very good hitter on top of it. It was a dopamine rush unlike I'd ever felt in my life before. The ball went, I think, about 370 feet to the right center gap. I'll put a picture of that on the video so you guys can see what I'm talking about. But that in that moment, that was where I fell in love with baseball again, where I fully realized that One, I knew I could be a good hitter, and that actually I was a good hitter now up until this point. But I've started forming these very close relationships with these new friends from not only in Milwaukee but around the country as well. And so the pendulum had fully swung around the complete opposite way. And now I fell in love with baseball again. I don't think I'll have another baseball moment that tops that. And to this day, it's been 2, 3 years since I've gone through that. I will never forget it, and I will always be grateful that I got to experience that. So the moment that I fell in love with baseball again, on the surface, it's me hitting a home run, but when you add into the origin story, the context that I had to give you guys leading up to talking about it, it makes a lot more sense. So this was the start of a new chapter in my baseball life that I like to call the return. This is my return to baseball, hopefully in perpetuity. So I decided to take this event and go a little bit, and not go a little bit, go way deeper into even becoming an even better baseball player, the best baseball player that I possibly could. Now that I understand, now that I understand what it takes to be a better baseball player and also being in a better mental state of being now that I was a mature 26-year-old at the time, everything became a lot more clear to me. So I decided to go deeper in on baseball. So for the remainder of that Tulsa trip, I ended up going 7 for 12. I don't really recall a period in time, a small period in time or a tournament where I've ever really hit that well. So that was the start of me really digging into and refining my desire to practice and hone in on my technique. So fast forward about another year or so, I had this craving to play more games. As fun as much as I love the Milwaukee Bangers, we didn't play enough games. So I decided I wanted to kind of supplement what I did with them with another team in a men's league for players that's 25 and older in Milwaukee. Shout out Rock Baseball and the Milwaukee Tigers at MKE Tigers on Instagram. This was a really interesting few months coming back into my baseball journey because there's a lot of uncertainty around it. First of all, you have a draft when it comes to joining this league unless you already know people going into it. And before the draft, for some teams, they would want you to come and try out, understandably so, since it's a competitive league. So to prepare, I had basically spent months in advance strength training again, but this time honing in on the techniques, basically learning the lesson that I did when I was a junior in high school, that strength alone can only take you so far. You have to have good technique to really set yourself apart. So this time around, I had finally gotten a balance of technique and strength training. But anyways, I made the team and I was delighted to be playing again. So naturally, I had to compete for playing time now that I had earned a spot on this team. Long story short, I did end up playing or earning the center field spot for the team, and I had a successful season. To continuously keep up and continue to get better, I decided to experiment with another tool to refine my swing. Early on in the season, I had figured out that there was something missing because I just kept missing under the ball. And funny enough, the tool that I ended up using was ChatGPT. I'll make a whole other video about how I use ChatGPT to refine my swing and what results it yielded. Long story short, it turned out pretty well. So before, during, and after the season that I joined the Milwaukee Tigers, I would take reps as many as I really wanted, and maybe I would film like 2 or 3 of them. Then I would upload them to ChatGPT, ask for feedback, and it would progress my swing from whatever it was at the end of the season, at the start of the season, all the way to the end. I'll have some kind of comparison in the video here so you guys can see. So finally, that leads us to today. Where has this baseball journey taken me up to this point? So playing for 2 baseball teams, the Milwaukee Bangers and the Milwaukee Tigers, I've had a lot of fun. I made a lot of great friends doing so. This past season with Milwaukee Tigers, I had a lot of success. I led the team in RBIs and steals, and I was second in the league in steals. This was good enough to earn a spot in the league's All-Star game, which was a huge honor. All that aside, with the end of the season upon me and tasting just a little bit of success, and I found myself kind of asking the question, what do I do with this experience now that I'm at this point? Now I'm 29 years old. I'm a few years back into loving baseball again. I haven't quite figured out the answer to that yet, other than one, this YouTube channel. It's the start of this, and just making videos about my baseball journey in general. I also know that I just want to keep getting better and better in every aspect that I play in. So I will continue to practice always. I will continue to find new tools and new ways to get better, of which I will share with all of you. And the thing is, I know I can keep getting better and better. I have proven to myself that I can improve, and I do have a higher ceiling than I ever thought I did. So when you combine those 2 things together, what do you get? It basically, I think my only goal really is to, 1, share my experience, and 2, hopefully help others by sharing my experience. So where will that end up taking me? I'm not really sure. But there are a few things. There's actually a lot of things I've learned in my baseball journey that I want to share with you, so that maybe it can help you in some way, for whatever it's worth. So to kind of conclude the video, I will share with you a few of the lessons that I learned throughout this entire journey of my baseball life. The first of which I think I've harped on, actually, maybe even a little bit too much in this video, which is it trumps everything. You can be the strongest person on the face of the earth. If you don't have good technique, you're not really going to be able to set yourself apart and excel. I have proven that in my own experience countless times. If your hitting technique, your pitching technique, your fielding technique, even your base running technique isn't quite there, your ceiling is going to be limited. So I encourage you, hone in on your technique. The second is define what success really looks like for you. I think that is something that I have always struggled with. I always said in my youth, and even till today, I'm still guilty of this, I want to be a good baseball player. I want to be a successful one, but I've never really sat back and really known what that looks like. And the thing is, it's going to be unique for everybody. I find that the more healthy definition of success is getting to a point where you just keep getting better at a technique and a process. So for example, you might not be an all-star, you might not hit 500 in the season, but did you get better at your technique? Is your process honing in? Are you being a smarter player? Are you taking more walks? Or maybe success might look like an all-star game for you and hitting 500 or playing at the next level, whatever that might be. I find that having a solid definition of that and being okay with redefining it as you go is the most healthy way to do it. Third, everybody's going to blossom at different times and in different ways in this game. I myself think I'm blossoming like right now at the age of 29, when I'm never going to play professional or collegiate baseball, obviously, because I'm just not good enough. But right now I'm the best baseball player I think I've ever been in my entire life, and I'm getting to a point where I can only get better. I thought I was a failure when I was 17 and I wasn't doing very well. So even if whether a youth player, a high school player, or a college player, especially, and you don't feel like you're quite there yet, you could very well blossom when you're 29, like me, 35, 16. It doesn't matter. The point is, you will get there at some point. So just keep at it. Number 4, if you look at your baseball journey as lifelong, it is absolutely impossible to fail. This kind of goes and intertwines with defining what success looks like for you. For me, when I was young, I told myself that if I couldn't get to college baseball and earn a scholarship, I was a failure because my baseball career would end right then and there after high school and I would never get to play ever again. And now that I'm on the outside of that and I'm approaching my 30s and playing baseball and having fun with it, I can truly look at it as a lifelong journey of like, okay, I might not have played in college. That's totally okay. But having fun playing in these leagues, I could maybe even coach one day. If you're looking at it from a perspective of, I can start in my particular case, I could start my hitting technique and improving it when I'm 26, and I have the rest of my life to get better. When you have the rest of your life to get better, you have a lot less pressure on yourself and you have a lot more room to grow. So pump the brakes a little bit, look at your journey as lifelong, and I promise you, you'll never fail. Well, never is a strong word. You'll fail along the way, but that's part of honing in on your process and getting better. And finally, this goes to the confidence piece I talked about in my origins and throughout my high school career. Maybe this one's a bit more for me personally, but I think it can also apply to all of you. I'll explain. And that is, I'm a much better baseball player than I ever realized. As I said earlier, in high school, I thought I was mediocre. I convinced myself I was mediocre. I convinced myself I'd never even be a decent hitter, let alone a good one. I'm coming to find out that none of that's actually true. I'm a much better baseball player than I realized. And I think that's due to the fact of learning all the previous lessons that I shared with you guys. So if you can combine all those things, I think you'll be a much happier, a much healthier baseball player, and you won't run into the problem like I did where you stop playing and hate it for such a long time because of one reason or another. So that'll do it, you guys. If you've made it this far, thank you for watching or listening, whichever platform you're on. I hope this helped even just one person in their baseball journey. If you're feeling lost, whether you want just some entertainment and somebody to tell you a story, if this has helped you in any way, I'm happy. And I think I've accomplished my own goal. So more to come. But thank you all for listening and watching. This is Bryce on Balls. We'll see you next time.